is Wave Nautilus. You can call me Olivia, but my YouTube name is Wave. I prefer to be called Wave, and this is my dad. What's your name?
Carter Moline.
Okay. Okay, so you're Carter. I'm Olivia, or Wave. And this meeting and video I'm going to post on YouTube, it is about special needs education. Is there anything you want to ask me, Dad, about that topic?
Yeah, I want to know, how do you think you did in elementary school and how do you think you did afterwards?
I think that in elementary school, I think that everything was much better than in middle school. I think that in middle school I really struggled, and I really struggled to get through middle school. I think it was because I did not have a smooth transition from elementary to middle school. I also have another question for you that I might keep asking. What is the best advice you can give to parents that are new to autism, that have an autistic child or teen, that don't really know that much about autism, as kind of an introduction to the whole meeting? What do you think
Sure,
is something you could say to them, like the best advice you can give?
sure. Well, Wave, they've got a lot of information on the internet these days about autism. So it's easy to learn about autism. And you're gonna have, your medical team is definitely gonna, know what autism is. You can find psychologists to work with you. You can find help. But your difficulty with autism is going to be what kind of a public school division you live in. So I think from state to state and from school division to school division, there's a lot of variety in the results that you're going to get for people with autism. So I think your biggest problem or difficulty or challenge with raising a child with autism is actually what kind of administration you have in your school division.
Do you have any more questions to ask me?
Yeah, you were an inclusion student when you were in elementary school, and you were an AB honor roll student. You were identified as gifted. You were never suspended from pre-kindergarten all the way through 5th grade. And then in 6th grade, you went to another school. They gave you several suspensions, and then they tried to convince us to push you out of the school division, which eventually that happened. So how do you feel about that? You were really doing fine, and then they pushed you out of the school division.
I feel like that's unfair because they could have just given me some help. Instead of just pushing me out of the school division, they could have given me help, and that would have really helped me improve
Yeah.
instead of get worse.
Well, see, with special education money, see, that's all coming down. The special education law is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And that money comes from the federal government at the United States Department of Education. And then that money goes through the Virginia Department of Education. And then that comes into your local school division. So basically, that money was not providing a lot of supports within your division. So they were funding very, very expensive private schools and putting a lot of money into that. And they were not putting enough money into your local school division. So in my opinion, they did not provide you with supports in the school division, and that's why they were suspending you.
For any parents that don't know what special needs education is, can you explain to them what it is in your own
Sure.
words?
So under the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which we all call IDEA, the public schools have to provide you with free appropriate public education, and they call that FAPE. And the committee that does that is the Individualized Education Plan Team. So that's called the IEP team. So in a nutshell, the IEP team provides FAPE in your public school system, and that's how it works. Every child in the United States that's in special education, they all have an IEP team, and that's where you advocate for your child.
Am I allowed to be an advocate for myself?
Yes, you are. You have attended some IEP teams, but I've got to be honest with you, Wave. When you attended, you advocated for yourself, and they didn't listen to you. And they didn't listen to me, and they didn't listen to your mom. So that was kind of frustrating.
It does seem frustrating. So can you explain, in my personal situation and possibly in other people's situations too, basically what school options you have after you're pushed out of the school division? What are the options that you have without naming?
Very, very few.
What are the
Because,
schools you guys have?
well, you live in Virginia. So in Virginia, the Virginia legislature and the governor approve funding for private schools. And there are very, very few private school options. They basically control and manipulate which schools are available. Very few schools in your area. And the schools tend to have restraint and seclusion. So they're very, very, how do I say it? They're very, very restrictive environments for a child. So when they use restraint and seclusion, restraint is when they use physical restraint or pharmacological restraint or mechanical restraint. So they use hands, a machine, or medicine to restrain the child. And seclusion is when they have a seclusion room or they utilize a room for seclusion. And they wanted you to go to a school that had a seclusion room, and the seclusion room had no door handle on the inside, and there were footprints on the door where some child tried to kick their way out of that door. So your mother and I did not really want you to go there.
So what was the scariest alternative school that you went to? Well, not went to, but you know what I'm talking about. Just interviewed the people that worked there, tried to get as much information as you could about that school, and just saw like the inside and outside of that school. What was the scariest school that you saw?
Well, that one was the scariest, the one I just described. And it was the scariest because we actually advocated against that, and your medical team advocated against that, and they wouldn't respect what we were asking for. Also, that one was scary because it had no real playground outside. It just had an asphalt parking lot. And, you know, it took really severe behavior kids. But having said that, I saw another school that had a seclusion room, and it had a glass window with scratch marks all over it. So some kid had tried to scratch their way out of that room or break the glass and get out. So that was really scary. And another school I saw had a sign about not having weapons, and that was pretty scary. And another school that I saw was a public alternative school, and it had metal bars on outside the building over the windows. So if a child tried to break a window to get out, they would still be behind bars. And I kind of thought, I wouldn't want my kid going to a school that was set up like a jail. I just felt like that was not acceptable. So those schools have all scared me. They're really scary. I would never, ever, ever want you in those kinds of schools.